The observation deck of the Grand Archive offered a view that had humbled scholars from every species in the Dominion. The dying star hung in the void like a wounded giant, its red light painting the crystalline structure of the archive in shades of blood and rust. Sealbin had seen dying stars before, but something about watching one through human eyes made the sight feel different. Heavier with meaning somehow, Yuncio stood at the observation window with her hands clasped behind her back, her silver hair glowing crimson in the ancient light. She looked small against the vastness of space, a fragile creature whose species had somehow become the most dreaded force in the galaxy. Stars die, Yuncio said without preamble. Everything dies eventually. Species rise and fall. Empires crumble. Civilizations that span thousands of worlds become footnotes in history, books that no one reads anymore. Sealbin moved to stand beside her, watching the stars surface roil with the last desperate fires of a life measured in billions of years. This is meant to be a lesson about mortality? It is meant to be a lesson about perspective, the archivist corrected. Watch the star and tell me what you see. The Kirathi studied the dying giant, searching for whatever wisdom the human wanted her to find. I see entropy, she said finally. I see the inevitable end of all things. And does that frighten you? Sealbin considered the question carefully. Her people worshipped strength and feared weakness. But death itself was simply part of the natural order. No, she admitted, death is natural. It is the absence of life that frightens us, not its ending. Nuncio nodded slowly. Humans fear death more than almost anything else. We rage against it, fight it, deny it with every fiber of our being. We have spent our entire existence trying to escape the inevitable, trying to build something that will outlast us, trying to matter in a universe that does not care if we exist at all. That seems exhausting. It is, the archivist agreed, and it is also the source of everything we are. She turned to face Sealbin, the dying light casting shadows across her weathered features. You asked why humans are truly dreaded. You have learned about our patience, our memory, our capacity for both cruelty and compassion. But all of those traits flow from a single source. What source? We are terrified of being forgotten. Yuncio said simply, we cannot bear the thought that we might live and die and leave nothing behind. So we throw ourselves against the universe with everything we have, desperate to make some mark that will prove we existed. We build monuments and write stories and have children and create art and explore the stars. All because we cannot accept that we might one day be nothing more than dust. Sealbin's scale shifted thoughtfully. The Kirathi did not share this fear. Her people lived in the eternal present, caring little for legacy or remembrance. When a Kirathi died, they were mourned and then forgotten. Their essence returned to the cosmic cycle from which they came. This is why you cannot forget wrongs done to you, Sealbin realized, because forgetting would mean those wrongs did not matter. Yes, and this is why you form such deep connections with other species. She continued, because those connections prove that you existed, that you touched other lives and changed them. Yes, and this is why you transform everything you touch, Sealbin said with growing understanding, because transformation is proof that you were there. Yes, Yuncio said with something like pride in her voice. Now you begin to understand. The archivist walked slowly along the observation window, her reflection ghosting across the glass. Every human carries this terror inside them, she explained, this desperate need to matter, to mean something, to leave a mark on the universe that cannot be erased. It drives us to create wonders and commit atrocities. It pushes us to explore the farthest reaches of space and dive into the deepest mysteries of existence. It makes us the best friends the galaxy has ever known and the worst enemies anyone could imagine. She stopped and turned to face Sealbin directly. The galaxy does not fear human weapons because weapons can be countered. The galaxy does not fear human vengeance because vengeance can be avoided. The galaxy fears that humans will notice them, because once we notice you, we will remember you. And once we remember you, you become part of our story. Whether through destruction or through love, we will make you matter to us. And that means you will never be free of us. Not ever. Not until the last human is dead, and the last human record is destroyed, and the last human story is forgotten. Sealbin stood in silence, feeling the weight of what Yunseo was telling her settle into her understanding. She had come to this archive seeking to understand why a species of small, fragile, short-lived creatures had become the most dreaded force in known space. Now she understood. Humans were not dreaded because of what they could do. They were dreaded because of what they could not stop doing. They could not stop remembering. They could not stop connecting. They could not stop transforming everything they touched into part of their endless, desperate struggle against oblivion. My people conquered worlds through fear, Sealbin said slowly. We made other species submit through the terror of our claws and venom. You did, Yunseo agreed. And when those species found someone stronger, they abandoned their fear of you and submitted to the new power. But humanity is different. We do not make you fear us. We make you love us or hate us. But either way, we make you remember us. And memory is stronger than fear. Memory outlasts empires and civilizations and species. Memory is how we fight against the dying of the light. The old archivist smiled. And Sealbin saw both warmth and warning in the expression. You came here seeking to understand fear. Yunseo said, but fear was never what made humanity dreaded. What made us dreaded is that we care too much. We care about justice and remember every wrong. We care about connection and remember everyone we meet. We care about legacy and remember ourselves into eternity. We are the species that cannot let go. And that makes us more dangerous than any predator the galaxy has ever known. Sealbin looked back at the dying star, watching its red light pulse with the final rhythms of an ancient existence. She thought about her people and their empire of fear, about the worlds they had conquered and the species they had subjugated. All of it seemed small somehow, temporary, in a way she had never considered before. What happens now? She asked. Now you return to your people with new understanding. Yunseo said, you have been noticed by humanity. You have spent time with one of us. Asked questions, sought knowledge. I will remember you. Sealbin of the Kirathi. And because I remember you, you are now part of humanity's story. The Kirathi felt something shift inside her. Some fundamental change in how she understood herself and her place in the galaxy. Is that a threat? She asked no. Yunseo replied, it is a gift. You will never be forgotten now. Your questions and your courage and your willingness to seek truth will be recorded in this archive for as long as it stands. 10,000 years from now, someone will read about the young Kirathi predator who came seeking fear and found something far more terrifying instead. Sealbin looked at the human. This small and fragile creature who had somehow shown her the true shape of the galaxy. I think I understand now, she said quietly, why the galaxy dreads you. Do you? You do not simply defeat your enemies or befriend your allies. You make everyone part of you. You absorb the galaxy into your desperate fight against forgetting. And there is no defense against that. No strategy can protect against being remembered. No weapon can fight against being loved. Yunseo nodded with satisfaction. Now you understand. Sealbin turned back to the dying star, its red light washing over her scales. She was a predator, born from a species that had built an empire on terror, but standing here in the presence of humanity's archivist, watching an ancient star breathe its last. She finally understood what true dread meant. It was not fear of death or pain or conquest. It was the realization that there was nothing she could do to escape being remembered. the humans would carry her with them forever, and whether that was a blessing or a curse. She could not say, "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For showing me what my people never understood. We thought we were predators, but we were only animals who had never met a real one." Yunseo laughed softly, the sound warm against the cold light of the dying star. "You are welcome, young hunter. Now go back to your people and tell them what you learned. And remember, humanity is watching. We always are. And once we notice you, we never look away." Sealbin walked away from the observation deck carrying knowledge that would change her people forever. Behind her, the human alchemist remained at the window, watching the star die, adding another memory to humanity's endless story. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, a species that had thought itself fearsome began the slow process of realizing they were not predators at all. They were simply prey that had never understood the nature of the hunt. They walked through corridors that grew older as they descended deeper into the archive, passing from sections that hummed with modern technology into chambers where the crystals had been growing for millennia before humanity ever reached the stars. Yunseo moved with the confidence of someone who had walked these paths countless times. Her small frame somehow commanding in the ancient darkness, Sealbin followed in silence, her mind still processing everything she had learned. The Kirathi had always believed that predators held the highest position in galactic society. That species built for violence and dominance would naturally rule over those who were not. But humans challenged that belief in ways she had never considered. They were not predators in the traditional sense, not hunters who overwhelmed their prey with superior physical attributes. They were something else entirely, something that did not fit into any category she knew. "You are thinking very hard," Yunseo observed without turning around. "How can you tell? Your scales have been cycling through 7 different colors in the last 30 seconds. The archivist replied, "Among Kirathi, that indicates intense cognitive processing." Sealbin forced her scales to settle into a neutral gray. "You know my species well." "I know many species well," Yunseo said. "That is part of being human. We study everything. We learn everything. We can't help ourselves. It is compulsion as much as strategy." They entered a chamber that took Sealbin's breath away. The walls were lined with records stretching back to the founding of the Dominion itself. Histories of every species that had ever achieved spaceflight preserved in crystalline perfection, but it was not the scope of the collection that stunned her. It was what the records showed when Yunseo activated them. These are accounts of human contact with other species, the archivist explained, not military engagements or diplomatic negotiations, personal contacts, individual humans meeting individual aliens and forming connections. The display showed a human child playing with young members of a species Sealbin did not recognize, some kind of aquatic beings with iridescent skin. Another showed a human soldier carrying a wounded alien through a battlefield, risking his life for someone who should have been his enemy. Another showed a human family gathered around a table with members of 4 different species, all of them laughing at some shared joke. "What is this?" Sealbin asked. "This is the other side of humanity," Yunseo said. "The side that makes our vengeance so terrible is the same side that makes our compassion so overwhelming." She walked among the displays, her weathered hands gesturing to image after image of humans connecting with alien life. "We bond with everything," the archivist continued. "It is a trait that evolved on our homeworld, where we formed partnerships with predators who should have hunted us, with prey who should have fled from us. We domesticated wolves and turned them into loyal companions. We tamed horses and elephants and falcons. We cannot encounter another form of life without wanting to understand it, connect with it, make it part of our family. That seems like weakness," Sealbin said carefully. "It is our greatest strength." Yunseo corrected, and our greatest weapon. She pulled up a specific record, showing a group of human aid workers on a planet devastated by plague. The humans wore protective suits, but they moved among the sick and dying without hesitation, offering medicine and comfort to beings who looked nothing like them. This world was not human. Yunseo explained. The species living here had never had significant contact with humanity. They had no strategic value, no resources we needed, no political importance. When the plague struck, they expected to face it alone, but humans came. Why? Sealbin asked. Because they were suffering. Yunseo said simply, and we could not stand by and watch. That is not rational. No, the archivist agreed. It is human. She moved to another display. This one showing the aftermath of a natural disaster on a colony world. Humans and aliens worked side by side to pull survivors from rubble, to distribute food and water, to rebuild homes that had been destroyed. We have a saying, there are no strangers, only friends we have not yet met. It sounds naive when you first hear it, but watch humans long enough and you realize we actually believe it. We approach every new species as potential friends, potential family, potential additions to our ever-expanding circle of belonging. Sealbin thought about this, trying to reconcile the compassionate images before her with the cold devastation of the Virax. How can both be true? She asked finally, how can you be capable of such kindness and such cruelty? Because they are the same thing. Yunseo said, the love we feel for those inside our circle is matched by the fury we feel toward those who harm them. The compassion we show to strangers is balanced by the vengeance we take on enemies. We do not see contradiction in this. We see consistency. Protecting what you love sometimes requires destroying what threatens it. She turned to face Sealbin directly, her old eyes holding the weight of human history. This is why the galaxy dreads us. Not because of our weapons or our patience or our refusal to forget. Those make us dangerous. Yes, but danger can be avoided, defended against, prepared for. What cannot be defended against is love. Sealbin's scales shifted with confusion. I do not understand. If we only destroyed our enemies, the galaxy could simply avoid making enemies of us, Yunseo explained. If we only punished those who wronged us, others could simply choose never to wrong us. But we do not stop there. We also help those who need help, defend those who cannot defend themselves, befriend those who have no friends. And once you accept human help, once you allow humans to care about you, you become part of us. Your enemies become our enemies. Your struggles become our struggles. Your children play with human children. Learn human stories, absorb human values. Within a generation, you are not quite what you were before. Within 3 generations, the line between your people and humanity begins to blur. The archivist pulled up one final display, showing a group of young beings from multiple species standing together in graduation robes. Their faces showed joy and pride. And among them were humans who looked at their alien friends with genuine affection. The Virax learn what happens when you become our enemy, Yunseo said softly. But there are 100 species who have learned what happens when you become our friend. Their cultures mix with ours. Their histories become chapters in our story. Their descendants cannot remember a time when humanity was not part of their lives. They are not conquered. They are not subjugated. They are loved. And that love transformed them as surely as our vengeance transformed the Virax. Sealbin stood in silence, a predator mind struggling to find the threat in what Yunseo described. Friendship was not a weapon. Compassion was not conquest. And yet somehow she understood that what the human was describing was more complete than any military victory could ever be. You absorb everything you touch. Sealbin said slowly, you cannot help it. Yunseo agreed. We do not even recognize that we are doing it most of the time. We simply want to connect, to understand, to be part of something larger than ourselves. And in pursuing that connection, we remake the galaxy in our image without ever meaning to. Is that why you are dreaded? The archivist smiled, and for the first time Sealbin saw genuine warmth in the expression. No, Yanseo said, that is why we are loved and dreaded at the same time. We offer friendship that transforms you, or vengeance that destroys you. But there is one more thing you must understand. The deepest truth about humanity that makes all the rest of it inevitable. What is it? Yunseo gestured toward the corridor leading up to the observation deck. Come with me, she said. The dying star will help me explain. And then you will finally understand why no species in the galaxy, predator or prey, will ever be free of humanity once we have noticed them. Sealbin found herself leaning forward, despite her instincts screaming at her to maintain distance from this small, fragile creature who suddenly seemed far more dangerous than any predator she had ever encountered. Tell me, she said, tell me what the galaxy dreads about your nature. Yunseo rose from her seat and walked slowly toward a different section of the archive, gesturing for Sealbin to follow. The HFY story demonstrates what we do to our enemies, the archivist explained as they moved through corridors lined with glowing data crystals. But to understand why we are dreaded, you must first understand what we have done to ourselves. They entered a chamber Sealbin had not seen before, smaller than the others, but filled with displays showing images from a single world, a blue and green sphere that the Kirathi recognized as the human homeworld, Earth. Yunseo said with something like reverence in her voice, the planet that made us what we are. The displays began cycling through images, and Sealbin watched with growing unease as scenes of devastation filled the chamber, cities reduced to rubble, bodies lying in streets, fires consuming forests that stretched to every horizon. What is this? Sealbin asked. Our history, Yunseo replied. The history we lived before we ever reached the stars. She gestured to one display showing a mushroom cloud rising above a flattened city. We split the atom and used it to burn 2 cities to ash, killing hundreds of thousands of our own kind in seconds. Another display showed soldiers in primitive armor cutting each other down with metal blades. We fought wars that killed millions over land and resources and ideas that none of us remember today. Another showed bodies piled in mass graves, skeletal figures behind wire fences. We committed genocide against ourselves. Entire populations erased because they worshipped different gods or had different ancestors. Sealbin's scales had gone pale gray with horror. The Kirathi were predators. Yes, but they had never turned their claws against their own species with such systematic brutality. Why are you showing me this? She demanded. Because you asked why we are dreaded, Yunseo said calmly, and the answer begins here. With the understanding that nothing you could ever do to us would be worse than what we have already done to ourselves. She moved to another display, this one showing natural disasters rather than warfare, earthquakes toppling buildings, floods drowning entire regions, plagues spreading through populations like wildfire. Our world tried to kill us too, the archivist continued. Ice ages that lasted millennia, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, diseases that wiped out half of entire continents, droughts and famines and storms that should have ended our species 100 times over. And yet you survived, Sealbin said slowly. Beginning to understand, we did more than survive. Yunseo corrected, we learned. Every catastrophe taught us something new. Every war showed us what we were capable of, both terrible and magnificent. Every disaster that failed to destroy us made us more certain that we could endure anything. She turned to face Sealbin directly, her eyes holding memories that stretched back thousands of years through the genetic legacy of her people. This is the first thing you must understand about humans. You cannot frighten us, not truly. Not in any way that will make us surrender or submit, because we have already survived everything. We have survived each other at our absolute worst. Nothing alien, nothing from outside our world, could possibly be more terrifying than what we have already endured. Sealbin thought about this, her predator mind trying to find the flaw in the logic. Fear is useful, she argued. It teaches caution, prevents foolish risks. It does, Yunseo agreed, and we feel fear. Make no mistake, human soldiers feel terror before battle. Human colonists feel dread when they land on hostile worlds. We are not immune to the emotion. Then, what is different about you? We do not let it control us, the Archimist said. We feel fear, and then we do what must be done anyway. Our history taught us that survival requires action, even when every instinct screams at us to flee. So we learn to be afraid and brave at the same time. To let fear sharpen our focus rather than paralyze our will. She walked to another display. This one showing humans rebuilding after disasters, cities rising from rubble, crops growing in poisoned soil, children playing in places that had been graveyards a generation before. But this is only half of why we are dreaded. Yunseo said, the Voraks learned that we do not forget wrongs done to us. What they did not understand was how long we are willing to wait for justice. 3 years does not seem like a long time. Sealbin observed 3 years was fast. Yunseo replied with a thin smile. We were being restrained. There are grudges in human culture that have lasted centuries. Hatreds passed down through generations like precious inheritances. Wrongs that were done to great-grandparents that great-grandchildren still seek to avenge. We remember everything. We write it down, record it. Teach it to our children so they will never forget what was done to their ancestors. Sealbin felt the cold weight in her stomach grow heavier. That is obsessive, she said. That is pathological. Perhaps, Yunseo acknowledged, but it is also who we are. And here is the part that makes it truly frightening. We do not feel guilt about it. When a human waits decades to destroy someone who wronged them, they do not see themselves as villains. They see themselves as patient guardians of justice. They believe they are right to remember, right to wait, right to strike when the moment comes, and they will feel righteous satisfaction when their enemy finally falls. The archivist pulled up new records, showing diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations spanning centuries of human contact with other species. Every species the galaxy knows has a limit to their patience, she explained. Wrong them badly enough, and they will strike back immediately. Wrong them slightly, and they will eventually forget. Humans have no such limits. We will wait until the end of time, if that is what justice requires. And we will smile at you the entire time. Shake your hand, trade with your merchants. Learn your language and your culture. You will think we have forgiven you. You will think you are safe. And then one day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps a century from now, you will realize too late that we never forgot at all. Sealbin thought about the Voraks again, about how they must have felt when they realized what was happening to them. The raiders had been predators too, confident in their strength and speed, certain that they could handle any threat that came at them directly. But humans had not come at them directly. Humans had smiled and waited and planned. And by the time the Voraks understood the danger, they were already destroyed. You said this is only half of why you are dreaded. Sealbin reminded her. What is the other half? Yanseo's expression changed, becoming somehow softer and more terrible at the same time. The Voraks still exist, she said. Their descendants live in modest prosperity. Human investment rebuilt what human strategy destroyed. Human teachers educate Voraks children. Human families have adopted Voraks orphans. You rebuilt them? Sealbin asked with confusion, after destroying them so completely? We did not destroy them, Yunseo corrected. We destroyed what they were. And then we helped them become something new, something better. something that would never again threaten anyone the way they had threatened us. She turned to face Sealbin with eyes that held both compassion and something far more dangerous. This is the other half of human dread. We do not simply defeat our enemies. We transform them. We absorb them into our vast, sprawling story. We make them part of us, and they never even realize it is happening until it is already done. Sealbin's claws retracted and extended involuntarily, as her instincts tried to process. This new information conquest she understood. Destruction she understood. But this was something else entirely. This was assimilation, disguised as mercy. "Come," Yinseo said, walking toward the chamber exit. "There is one more thing I must show you before you truly understand why the galaxy dreads humanity. And I warn you now, this is the truth that will change how you see us forever." The grand archive of the Velith Dominion hung in the void like a frozen teardrop. Its crystalline spires catching the dying light of the ancient star it orbited. Sealbin had traveled 17 light years to reach this place, and now she stood in its central chamber feeling small despite her predator heritage. She was Karathi, a species that had built empires on terror alone, and her scale shifted from deep purple to agitated crimson as she searched the endless corridors for one particular human. The archive housed scholars from 12 different species, all of them gathered for the Centennial Academic Summit that brought the galaxy's finest minds together every 100 cycles. Sealbin cared nothing for their research or their presentations. She had come with a single question burning in her mind, and she would not leave until she found answers. The human she sought was named Yinseo, an archivist who had served the Dominion for 4 decades among the scholarly community. Yinseo was considered a living treasure, a keeper of histories that most species preferred to forget. Sealbin found her in a reading alcove near the restricted section, surrounded by floating data crystals that cast pale blue light across her weathered face. The human was old by her species' standards, her hair gone silver and her hands marked by the passage of many years. Yet her eyes remained sharp as she looked up at the young Karathi standing before her. "You have been following me for 3 days," Yinseo said without surprise in her voice. "I wondered when you would finally speak." Sealbin's claws clicked against the floor as she stepped closer. "I need to understand something, and everyone tells me you are the one who can explain it. Many come to me with questions." The human replied, "What makes you special enough to warrant stalking an old woman through library corridors?" The Kirithi's scales flushed darker with embarrassment, but she pressed forward regardless. "I am a predator," Sealbin declared. "My people conquered 17 worlds through fear alone before we joined the Dominion peacefully. I am aware of Karathi history. Then you know we are fearsome." Sealbin continued, "We have claws that can shred metal, venom that kills in seconds, and reflexes faster than any species in the catalog galaxy." Yinseo nodded slowly, her expression revealing nothing. "And yet everywhere I travel," Sealbin said with frustration creeping into her voice, "I hear whispers that humans are the most dreaded species in existence." She spread her arms wide, displaying her natural weapons. "Look at you. You are small and soft and fragile. You have no claws, no venom, no natural armor of any kind. Your bodies break from falls that would not bother a Karathi child. You require constant hydration or you simply die. By every measure that matters, you should be prey." The human archivist listened to this outburst without reaction, her hands folded calmly in her lap when Sealbin finished, slightly breathless from her passionate speech. Yinseo simply smiled. "You have studied us then?" "Extensively," Sealbin confirmed. "I have read every military analysis, every tactical assessment, every biological survey of humanity that exists in the Dominion archives." "And what did you find?" "Nothing." The word came out as almost a hiss. Your weapons are adequate, but unremarkable. Your ships are functional, but not superior to anyone else's. Your soldiers are brave, but no braver than warriors from a dozen other species I could name. There is nothing in any record that explains why the entire galaxy treats humanity like a sleeping monster that must never be awakened. Yuncio was quiet for a long moment, studying the young Kirithi with those sharp old eyes. You looked in the wrong places. She finally said, "Then tell me where to look." Siobin demanded, "Tell me what makes humans so terrifying that even the elder races speak." "Your name in whispers." The human rose slowly from her seat, her joints protesting the movement with small sounds that spoke of age and wear. She walked to a nearby window that looked out upon the dying star, its red light painting her silver hair with colors like blood. "Before I answer," Yunseo said quietly, "I need you to understand something important." "What?" "Once you know the truth, you cannot unknow it," the human explained. "The comfortable illusion that keeps most species peaceful in human presence will be stripped away from you forever." Siobin's scales shifted to determined blue. "I am a predator," she repeated. "I do not need comfortable illusions." "Many have said that," Yunseo replied. "Few meant it as completely as they believed." "I am not afraid of truth." The human turned to face her, and something in those ancient eyes made Siobin's instincts scream warnings that her conscious mind did not understand. "Very well," Yunseo said, "but you did not come seeking truth. Young Kirithi, you came seeking fear, and I will show you why humans are truly dreaded." She moved to a console embedded in the wall and began entering commands. The floating data crystals around them dimmed as larger. Holographic displays flickered to life. "What I am about to show you is not classified," Yunseo explained, "but it is not widely distributed either. Most species prefer not to think about it." "Why?" "Because thinking about it means acknowledging what we are," the human said simply, "and that acknowledgement changes how you must interact with us forever." Siobin watched as historical records began populating the displays around them. Dates and locations and names scrolled past in the blue light, none of them meaning anything to her yet. "I could give you the simple answer," Yunseo continued. "I could tell you that humans are persistent hunters, who evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. I could explain that we heal from wounds that would kill most species, that we bond with anything, including our own predators, that we consume substances toxic to every other known life form for recreation. But none of that would satisfy you." "No," Siobin agreed. "Those are facts I already know." "Then let me tell you a story instead," Yunseo said, "a true story from 200 years ago, about a small human colony called New Mizzen and a species called the Varax who made the mistake of attacking it. The display shifted to show a planet, green and blue and beautiful, spinning slowly in the holographic light. "What happened to them?" Siobin asked. "To the colonists or to the Varax?" "Both." Yunsi's smile carried no warmth at all. "The colonists died," she said. 2,000 humans killed in a single night, with 500 more taken as hostages. "And the Varax?" The human settled into a chair facing the displays, her expression distant with memory and something darker that Siobin could not identify. "The Varax learned why you should never give humans a reason to notice you," Yunseo said softly. "They learned what we become when someone hurts our people. They learned that the galaxy's fear is not superstition or exaggeration." She turned to look at Siobin with eyes that had seen things no archivist should know. "They learned, too late, that humans do not forgive, and we never, ever forget." The holographic display shifted to show a world of golden fields and silver cities, a colony built by human hands on the edge of explored space. Yunseo's voice carried the weight of history, as she began the tale that would change how Siobin understood the galaxy forever. New Bizin was established 112 years before the Dominion Charter was signed. The archivist explained it was a farming world, producing grain and vegetables that fed 17 other human settlements in the region. The colonists were peaceful people, families who wanted nothing more than to work the land and raise their children under an alien sun. Sealbin settled onto a cushioned bench, her predator instincts telling her that she needed to pay attention to every detail of what came next. The Varax were raiders. Yanseo continued, a reptilian species with a culture built around taking what they wanted from those too weak to stop them. They had terrorized that sector of space for centuries, attacking soft targets and disappearing before anyone could mount a response. When their scouts found New Bizin, they saw an opportunity. The display changed to show the Varax themselves. Tall creatures covered in armored scales with multiple arms ending in curved claws. They looked dangerous, Sealbin admitted to herself. Though not more dangerous than her own people. They struck at night during the harvest festival. Yunseo said 20,000 colonists had gathered in the capital city to celebrate. The Varax killed 2,000 in the first hour and captured 500 more before withdrawing. They broadcast their victory across every communication channel, mocking human weakness and promising to return for more plunder. Sealbin nodded grimly. This was standard raider behavior, establishing dominance through violence and intimidation. What was the human response? Yunseo's expression became unreadable. Nothing? Nothing? For 3 standard years, humanity did absolutely nothing. The archivist confirmed. No fleet mobilization. No diplomatic protests, no economic sanctions. The Varax grew bolder with each passing month, convinced that humans were cowards who would accept any abuse rather than fight back. They mocked us on open channels, called us prey animals, declared that any human ship entering Varax space would be destroyed on sight. Sealbin's scales shifted with confusion. I do not understand, she admitted. Any predator species would have retaliated immediately. Exactly, Yunseo said, and that is exactly what the Varax expected. They were prepared for war, for fleets and armies and the glorious battles their culture celebrated. What they were not prepared for was patience. The display changed again, showing trade routes and diplomatic missions and scientific exchanges, all of them connecting human space to Varax territory. In those 3 years of apparent inaction, humans began appearing throughout Varax space. Yunzio explained traders offering favorable deals, diplomats seeking cultural exchange, scientists proposing joint research projects, engineers offering to help modernize Varax infrastructure. The Varax thought we were surrendering. The archivist continued. They believed we were trying to buy peace with gifts and flattery. They accepted our merchants, our diplomats, our experts, never once suspecting what we were actually doing. What were you doing? Sealbin asked, though something cold was beginning to form in her stomach as she suspected the answer. Learning. Yunzhou said simply, we mapped every Varax world, cataloged every defense installation, identified every resource dependency and supply chain. We studied their economy until we understood it better than they did. We analyzed their politics until we could predict which faction would support which decision. We became experts on everything Varax while they remained ignorant of everything human. The cold feeling in Sealbin's stomach grew heavier. This is espionage, she said. Every species conducts espionage. Every species gathers information for war. Yanseo agreed. But we were not gathering information for war. Then what? The human's eyes met hers, and Sealbin saw something ancient and terrible looking back. We were gathering information for extinction, not the extinction of the Varax people. Understand, we are not monsters who destroy entire species for the crimes of their leaders. No. We were planning the extinction of everything the Voraks were. Their pride, their independence, their identity as a people who took what they wanted without consequence. We were going to erase all of it and leave them with nothing but the knowledge of what they had lost. Sealbin found that her claws had extended involuntarily. A defensive reflex she could not control. "Continue," she said quietly. Lunseo nodded and turned back to the display. 3 years and 4 months after the New Bison massacre. We were ready. The retaliation began not with weapons, but with economics. Human traders had spent years entangling themselves in Vorak's commerce. Becoming essential suppliers of goods, the Voraks had grown dependent upon, on a single coordinated day. Every human merchant in Vorak space withdrew. Trade agreements that had seemed ironclad suddenly revealed clauses that allowed immediate termination. Debts that the Voraks had barely noticed were called in simultaneously, demanding payment and resources they could not spare. Supply ships that carried fuel and medicine and food simply stopped arriving. The display showed economic graphs plummeting, red indicators spreading across Vorak space like a disease. The political collapse followed within weeks. Yumseo continued. Human diplomats had spent 3 years studying Vorak's rivalries, encouraging old grudges, subtly reminding each faction of slights committed by the others. When the economy began failing, those factions turned on each other exactly as we had predicted. The central government fell in 2 months. By 3 months, 7 different groups were fighting for control of what remained. Sealbin watched the holographic representation of a civilization tearing itself apart, and she understood with horrible clarity what she was witnessing. This was not war. This was surgery, precise and cold and utterly without mercy. Only then did the human fleet arrive. Yunseo said, "Not to conquer," because there was nothing left to conquer. We came to offer aid to a people who had already been destroyed. The price was simple. Return every surviving hostage. Surrender every individual involved in the New Bison attack. Accept human observers in your government, your military, your economy. Forever. And they accepted, Sealbin said, a voice barely above a whisper. They had no choice. Yanseo confirmed we had left them no choice. We had dismantled their entire civilization without firing a single shot. And then we smiled and offered them a chance to survive what we had done to them. The display faded to darkness, leaving only the red light of the dying star to illuminate the reading alcove. Sealbin sat in silence, trying to process what she had learned. Her people used fear as a weapon. The immediate terror of claws and venom and overwhelming force, but this was something different. This was fear that waited, fear that smiled and offered friendship while counting down the days until your destruction, fear that felt righteous and justified and would never stop until it had taken everything you were. That is terrifying. Sealbin admitted finally, yes. Yanseo agreed, but that is not the part that frightens the galaxy. Sealbin looked up sharply. What do you mean? The Vorak story is a warning. The human said, it tells other species what happens when they harm us. But warnings only explain consequences. They do not explain why we are dreaded rather than simply feared. What is the difference? Yanseo smiled. And again Sealbin saw something ancient in her eyes. Fear is what you feel when something might hurt you, the archivist explained. Dread is what you feel when you realize there is nothing you can do to stop it. The galaxy fears human vengeance, but the galaxy dreads what human vengeance reveals about our nature. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Would you like to know what that is?